I live over in the Hudson Valley, which we talked about. I know you're familiar with West Point being a graduate and all. So to kind of kickstart with that, tell me a little bit about that experience, enjoying the West Point Academy.
Yeah, West Point, very formative for sure. It's amazing place to be from. There's so many amazing experiences you go through while you're there. So many life lessons to be learned. Uh, it's been instrumental in my success and my perseverance as a small business owner, and uh, very very proud to be from there. It's a not a very fun place to be at for 4 years,
Feel a
but
little bit like jail when you're there, or what?
yeah, sometimes it does for sure. And it's an amazing place, and I'm very proud to be from there and try to support the institution any way I can. It's a very rigorous 4 years, and uh, I have this crazy recurring nightmare that I'm like the first person to ever like graduate twice from it. So it's a uh, interesting, but I do have a lot of pride being a graduate from the military academy. So it's an amazing place.
Yeah, it's great. And I mentioned to you the other week when we were talking on the phone too, my aunt works over there in real estate. So I was there recently and it's a beautiful campus. Me being from New York and I've never made it actually onto the base since I was probably a kid or something, but it's beautiful. It's such a nice place. I mean, maybe it feels different when you're trapped inside there, but from the outside looking in, it's pretty nice.
It,
But
it is absolutely beautiful. I love to go back up, and I'd love to bring the family up there because being from Louisiana, where we're living a bowl in New
yeah.
Orleans, it's just beautiful to see the mountains and the terrain, and I love going up there. It's beautiful. The architecture is amazing. History is absolutely unbelievable. So it's amazing to go back up there for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think my aunt took us through the cemetery and she was giving us a history lesson while we were walking through there, and it was really neat. It was inspiring to walk through. Honestly, it's cool. But so past that too. So how long did you spend in the army after West Point?
I did 8 years active and reserve. I was an armor officer, so my active duty time was spent in the First Cavalry Division at Fort Hood at the time. So, uh, uh, and then when I transferred into the reserves, I also uh, was doing served in a cavalry unit. So it was have a lot of passion for that as well.
Cool. How'd you enjoy going to the reserves after serving active duty for a bit? Was it a different switch or what? What was your experience with it?
Yeah, it was certainly different and very enjoyable. A little bit different culture. Actually, it was in the National Guard, so uh, I, back in the day, it was one of the enhanced brigades, so we had a pretty high level of readiness. So a lot of training. Um, Probably, I think the year before I got out, I think I spent 30 weeks, with the Guard a year. So,
Hmm.
um, uh, I was commanding a cavalry troop, so it was had 180 soldiers, and so it was a lot of work, but very rewarding. People, the difference I think between maybe like the National Guard and active duty is that it's more like a family because you have less transition. You don't PCS to another post or another unit, so you have people there for a longer period of time. So it's a much closer family relationship, uh, and a lot of pride in the unit, very cohesive. So I really enjoyed it, and quite frankly, I miss it a lot.
Yeah.
And the lessons I've learned from being in the military, I've applied to the two businesses that I own, and we try to develop a culture that is quite similar to what I experienced in the military. Because when I did get all the way out, it was something that I long for and something that I miss because you just can't always have that same experience in a civilian job or a civilian business that you would have in the military. So,
Hmm.
um, we hire a lot of veterans, and I have a lot of passion for having veteran involvement in the business. I sit on a board of a nonprofit that places veterans into full time careers as they transition out of the military, whether that be the reserves or active duty. And so we've, I think 30% of our 35% of our staff are veterans. So tried to emulate the culture that I really enjoyed in the military in my own business. So
That's great too. And just in case there's any vets, non-vets tuning in, that doesn't mean yelling at a bunch of people. It means the camaraderie of it and everything, all the good parts about it.
right,
Not as
right.
many knife fans. That's great though, man. That's I love to hear that. And from my I haven't actually had corporate experience, right? I worked in a college university past the military, but it's similar in some regards. But even in the higher education realm, a lot of veterans don't self-identify, right? So that's part of, I remember the issue trying to start up a employee what is it, employee research group over at the university, is a lot of vets don't self-identify, so you just kind of like casually come up in conversation. But once you do, you start figuring out different vets in different spots in the company and different departments, kind of like a unit, right? So you got somebody in supply compared
Yep.
to logistics or whatever else the situation is, and it creates a little more cohesion. So that's pretty neat that you aggressively staff up with a lot of vets. That's really admirable. I bet that makes a great environment for those vets too. So with that, how long have you been running your company for now?
We've been, let's think, I guess maybe 2010 is when Louisiana Pepper Exchange started. Uh, we had another business that kind of transformed into Louisiana Pepper Exchange, really, around the intellectual property, the patent that I did for shipping pepper around the world. So, uh, but really, Louisiana Pepper Exchange started in 2010.
Got it. And you told me briefly about that process you created. Maybe you want to explain that a little more.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. I could probably talk for 2 or 3 hours about it, so I
Oh
won't get
wow.
too detailed. But it's, we had a customer that was shipping their pepper from their pepper mash from South and Central America. Pepper mash is a very difficult product to handle because of the high solids content and the fermentation process that's going on. And they were trying to find a more efficient way to ship it. So they wanted to ship it in a large bladder that holds 52,000 pounds of pepper, but it had some challenges because of the separation issues. So uh, I worked with them to figure out a way to be able to ship it in that system and be able to get it out efficiently. So what that really meant was we had to mix it. So invented a mixing or agitation system so that when it gets to the final destination, we can mix it and bring it back to a mixed state, a homogeneous state, and be able to pump it out efficiently. And I did this really as a favor because I was just providing a lot of value added services for this customer through my other business where we're selling equipment, and had no intentions of doing anything with it, and ended up saving them a lot of money. And they essentially came to me and said, "Hey, you saved us a lot of money. If we had any rights to the intellectual property, we'd like to waive it, and you go do what you want to do with it." So it's really how we got started with peppers. I'm an
Wow.
engineer. I'm not a food guy. So
Yeah.
it was really my entry into the food world was solving that problem for that customer.
That's so interesting too. Is I wonder, does part of that relationship with the client being a good relationship, them releasing that patent or whatever it was, come into play? If it wasn't a good relationship, maybe you wouldn't have created this company. Is that what that means?
Yeah, I think it's like everything else in life, whether you're in the
Hmm.
military, you're in the civilian world, in business, the military, it's really about relationships. So
Yeah.
uh, when when you have a relationship of trust and uh, you know you're doing things for the right reasons, and people have a tendency to treat you fairly. And because I had a good relationship with this particular customer, and the fact that I was investing a lot of time and money into solving a problem that they had, that um, they were willing to to allow us to have the rights on the patent. So yeah, it's all about relationships and building trust, and working with people that share similar values. So.
That's a great point. I can count, a number of people, even myself. I've stayed in contact with 10, 15 years, and you never know when they pop up again for something else. So now my dad used to drill that into me, never burn your bridges, and
That's
makes a
right.
lot of sense, right? So that's neat. So now that you've been running it since 2010, how did that, from business inception, figuring out the strategy and everything, how'd you start building your team? Was it just you running it at first, or did you start with a core team? How's that dynamic?
Yeah, we started with two or three people that had some rather significant experience in the food space because I didn't. People that I knew that shared the same values that I share and same ethics and the same uh, desire to to be part of our our vision and our journey, and um, started with them. And as a business continued to grow, we started finding additional people that uh, were like-minded, that would fit the culture of our business. And some of these people were people that I picked up along the journey of my career, whether that be the military or my journey in the civilian world. So um, you know I've always been able to find people that have been impactful in my life and find a way to get them involved in our business. So, as an example, in my other company, my old first sergeant is now the CEO.
Oh wow.
Right. So, I've known this guy as long as I've known him, probably almost as long as I've known. I've been married to my wife, so almost 29 years.
Wow.
So it's there's people that you find this common bond with, that that will take a bullet for you, that'll run through a brick wall for you, charge the hill, whatever it is. Or those are the guys that, if you can surround yourself with those kind of people, that uh, allows you to be successful, because it's really about the people. Any business is about the people. So
Yeah, it's interesting too. I wonder how much of that do you think stems from your time in the Army, developing those leadership skills? Do you bring a lot of that to your job, building that team, and stemming out from there?
yes, the answer is yes. I mean, I think those leadership experiences that I had in the Army have formed my leadership philosophy in our business. And I like to think that those skills have contributed to our success and have motivated our team to really want to be a part of something special. Because what we're doing right now in our business is sometimes very challenging. We're going through exponential growth right now, and so we're asking people to sacrifice a lot. We're asking people to spend time away from their families, like like you have to do in the military. Um, so yeah, I mean, getting people to believe in your vision and be willing to take the harder right over the easier wrong, being willing to sacrifice. Uh, it takes leadership for sure, and it also takes having the right team. The team that believes in what you're doing and that is committed to accomplishing the mission. So
Yeah, all great points too. And one thing that makes me uncomfortable hearing from vets when they get out of the military, I think I was probably in the same position with the mindset, is, I have no skills to bring to the table. I was, somebody as an infantry leader might think, I can't do anything with that. I'm not going to be holding a gun inside a corporate office, running around doing X, Y, Z. But to your exact point, you can absolutely do a lot with those skills. And it's great to see and have you on and show somebody that, starting from point A, they can end up at point B now with those skill set, and most likely outperform a lot of them, right? So that's really interesting right there. Um, so with that too, I know you said you hired on a lot of people in the food industry that you might not have been so knowledgeable about. What were some of the tactics there? Were you recruiting people that had jobs elsewhere? How'd that go? When you started, well, I guess the question would be, what was your core team? Were they operations, marketing, recruiting, HR? How'd that go when you first formed your business?
yeah, when we first formed the business, it was really about people that could generate revenue.
Fair enough.
So it was people that that could uh, had contacts in the food industry, that understood the food industry, that could help us from a sales perspective. Um, as we've grown, and now we're in, two facilities, one in New Orleans and one in New Mexico, and we have, uh, you know, QC requirements, very sophisticated operating systems. Uh, we've launched a retail brand. So we're doing a lot of marketing now, a lot of, we had to kind of find people that understood each of those different disciplines. But here's a great example. Um, our QC manager now, and this goes back to your previous comment about, people transitioning out of the military that think they may not have certain skill sets that translate into the civilian world. But, our corporate QC manager was a gunny sergeant in the Marines, right? And he was in aviation, was flying on Hueys, was a door gunner, and then, did all the inspections for, his squadron. But because of his experience with aviation quality control and maintenance, he had never worked in food, but he is one of our most valuable employees now because he, that discipline, the understanding of how to go through those quality processes, and working with a lot of discipline and being able to manage those responsibilities was directly applicable to our needs, and the rest of it, the food part of it, was easy to train. It's like, I told him when he started, I mean, if you're not doing the right things, that that helicopter is going to crash, right? If we don't do the right things, we could get somebody sick, right? So it's the same principles, just a different 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 job. But understanding how to do all those things gave him an incredible opportunity, to apply those principles to a completely different career.
I love that example. I mean, that attention to detail is unparalleled, right? Especially when you got somebody's life in your hand while you're in the military
Right.
or otherwise. So how many employees do you have in your company currently?
We were about 50. We run 48, 50.
Nice. Cool. So it's an interesting story how you grew to 50. So I know you mentioned offhand too about your retail process now. So could you explain that a bit? You were doing wholesale for a long time, right? I think I was reading a bit about your business too, and now you're entering the retail space. Is that more recent? And I guess what was that strategy there?
Yeah. So we're really an ingredient company, a pepper ingredient company. So, this year we'll do 65 million pounds of pepper.
Wow. Shit.
So we sell pepper to, throughout the entire food supply chain. So from large food manufacturers to, restaurant chains. So, we do business with Wendy's and McDonald's and Taco Bell and, other restaurants like that. But we also supply to food manufacturers who are making dressing, sauces, a lot of hot sauces, but barbecue sauces. We deal with people that are making, protein, so that chicken or, other proteins. But it's an ingredient. It's just this pepper mash, which is just pepper and salt. Okay. And then it goes through a fermentation process, and then it gets stabilized through that natural fermentation process. So it's just an ingredient that's used in the manufacturing of some other food. And several years ago, we decided that we wanted to make that available to the consumer. So it's really the same exact product. It's just pepper and salt that has been processed into a puree and then been pasteurized or cooked to stop the fermentation process. And you can think maybe of us like maybe the minced garlic of pepper. So it's a ready-to-use, shelf-stable ingredient. It's generally found in the produce section of the grocery store, typically close to either the peppers or the minced garlic, and it's something you can use to add flavor and spice to any dish that you're making. So, it's been an incredible journey for us to go from a business to business business to a business to consumer business, because we've always kind of been behind the scenes as an ingredient supplier. Now we're supplying an ingredient to the consumer. So lots of interesting opportunities and challenges there as you're now trying to educate and inform millions of people so that they're interested in buying, purchasing your product, putting it in their basket, checking out, and showing them how to use it, because it's really a brand new concept that never existed until we launched it. But it's actually the same exact product that we sell to large food manufacturers around the world. So
it's very interesting too. And I was curious what the unique challenge was going to retail after being wholesale for so long, and that kind of makes sense, right? The educational piece. I noticed all of your social media platforms are very on fire. I'd say they're pushing a lot of content out. Is that kind of part of that educational process to that consumer?
absolutely. So most of our digital efforts, whether that be social or advertising,
Mm-hmm.
are driven to educate the consumer on how to use a project, because it is a new concept.
Mm-hmm.
We created essentially a new category. So there really isn't readily available a pepper, ready to use pepper ingredient that is shelf stable. So so you'll see, if you spend time on our social platforms, that it's really about education. So education on how to use it, how to innovate with it, how to have fun with it, and then also where to find it. So it's a little jar, and it sits in a big grocery store. So making sure people understand how to find it once they become interested in it is also important to us.
That makes sense too. So with that, so now you guys have been cruising through retail, explain the customer what it is exactly. Where do you see your business going the next 5 to 10 years or so?
Yeah, so we've got exponential growth going on right now. We've just built a brand new facility in Santa Teresa, New Mexico,
Oh wow, congrats.
where we're scaling up our Mexican supply chain. So we'll do 45 million pounds of pepper out of Mexico this year.
Whew.
Most of it going into large food manufacturers. So we continue to grow from an industrial perspective, which is really the core of our business. The retail is continuing to grow. So right now we're in approximately 2,100 stores and growing. Our e-commerce footprint or volume is growing as well, both through our own website and Amazon. We also have a food service segment, so for any of the veteran chefs or other chefs that are out there, for back of the house use. So you can use it in a restaurant. So that comes in half gallons. So each of those segments are growing right now. I think we're very fortunate that we're in a segment of the food industry that is really on trend right now. People are really interested in adding more flavors and becoming more excited about having spice and heat in their food. So we have a lot of opportunity for growth right now. So we're going through a lot of expansion right now to be able to support those opportunities.
That's great. So to develop all that strategy, what goes into your strategy sessions with your team? You sit down, how do you guys start? What are some best practices for people tuning in?
Yeah, it's forecasting growth is always hard. So you got to be very disciplined about making sure that you have the right resources, whether that be human resources or capital resources, to be able to support growth opportunities. Typically we run a 2 or 3 year strategy on growth that always changes. Projections are always hard. So sometimes you nail it, sometimes you don't. So continuously evaluating what your growth expectations are and your strategies are is very important. And then also setting very clear objectives on what you're trying to accomplish, so you can keep, as you continue to grow, especially as you get more people, so that everybody really understands what's important to the business and focuses their energy. Because I don't care how small of a company you are, how big of a company you are, you always have limited resources. So you want those resources to be laser focused on what is important for the strategy of success for your business. So, um, yeah, that's focus, and having clear objectives is really, really important.
Got it. So you guys all heard it. You tuning in, whether you're a food truck or a mom and pop brick and mortar shop. Focus, focus, focus. Right. That's great. Great advice. So over the years, I'm sure that focus has shifted. The strategies have shifted. But what are some big business fires you've had to put out over this time that come to mind, and how'd you handle those?
Yeah, I can think of a million examples, but I'll tell you that, I think capital is always the biggest fire, right? So we're projected this year to have 2 to 3 times growth in revenue, which sounds like which sounds amazing, but growing costs money, right? So you always got to be prepared to have the right capital in place to support your strategy, and being able to be flexible enough to uh, adjust your strategy to meet maybe your capital limitations, and having the ability to be able to go out and be creative on how you get that capital is also very important. So, um, I think that is always a struggle for a growing business, whether you're small or large, and having good uh, resources, people that can walk you through that process and mentor you and help you understand what opportunities might be out there for you to make sure that you have access to those capital resources. I think is very important. So, I'd always recommend having, whether it's an advisory board or your uh, just a board for your company that, or just a close friend or someone who's been experienced and been through those challenges, and growing a business is absolutely critical.
All right, so it sounds like cash flow is the lifeblood of any business. To your point overall, though, which makes a lot of sense. And seeking out that mentorship is good too. I mean, even like coming out of the military, um, mentorship was key. I'd reach out to all my other guys I served with and was like, hey, how do I become a civilian again? As simple as that. Mentorship is helpful in every aspect, right? With that too, I know you mentioned you're on the board of Next Ops, right? It's called, and
Right.
give you a minute to talk about that a bit. It sounds like a great program.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about this because I, just like you, I went through it, um, and a lot of my peers and my soldiers went through it, and it's such a difficult transition. And we talked about it a little bit earlier.
Hmm.
You I think when you come out of the military, you feel like you just don't know where you belong. Whether you're MOS or whatever you did in the military can actually translate to value for your civilian career, and whether or not someone you can find someone that feels like you're bringing value to their organization. And so its next op is its mission is to place men and women coming out of the military, any branch of the military, into full-time careers, not jobs, careers, where they can uh, understand, to help them understand what value they can bring to an employer, and then to couple employers with people that are transitioning out. And that's not just like finding a potential employer and matching them with uh, the veteran. It's about mentorship. It's about resume refinement. It's about coaching, and it's really about finding a job that is going to put that veteran into place where they can be successful and be spiritually satisfied and have a good income to be able to support their families, because that's what they deserve. And I think a lot of veterans, when they come out, just maybe sell themselves a little bit short because it's an intimidating process. And the values that veterans learn in the military are so applicable to everything else they do in their life. But it's especially as a business owner, I can really appreciate the values, the work ethic, the commitment to a mission, that doesn't matter what you did in the military. Those basic principles are applicable to every job, that's out there. So it's a process. I think we had a record year this year and placed, over 600 veterans in the full-time careers. We placed them in careers that were probably 15 to 20% higher starting salaries than what most veterans have coming out. And it's because we are, training them, coaching them on how to become a civilian employee, and we're finding them, employers that value those attributes that veterans have when they're coming out. So, but I'm very passionate about it. Not most, but a lot of our employees come through that program. That's how I really became a board member. I'm the chairman of the board right now, and I feel so strongly about it. That's where I spend the free time that I do have, is to help grow that nonprofit. So
that's great. And I love your point about having veterans find a career and not a job, because the statistic is out there, which makes sense even just saying it out loud. But 7 to 8 months, most vets stay in a job before they quit, right? Their first job out of the military. I know I had the pretty much the same exact timeline myself, right? Because a lot of vets, I think, come through the process. And the past few years, I've seen a lot of vets come through as a student, right? So we're offering them a lot of career advice on how to get a job afterwards. And a big piece of that, we try to tell them to look inwards holistically and figure out what will you be happy in, what don't just go after the money, right? You want to enjoy something to make money at it, and it'll come in time. So I love that Next Ops has that in mind too, which I'm sure on purpose leads to more success for vets, which is great. So thinking back to when you were getting out of the military and after you started your business up in 2010, what would you go back to that 2010 version of yourself and tell yourself? What's that advice?
Oh, that's a good question. Patience. I think it'd be patience. Like most veterans, I'm a very driven individual, and I like to get things done quickly, and I've got I'm a workaholic, but sometimes things take longer than maybe you would like them to take, especially in the civilian world, right? So we all learn as veterans how to be persistent and persevere, but understanding that some things maybe in the civilian world, especially if you're an entrepreneur or starting a business, take a little bit longer than you may want them to take as you're trying to do them. And you just really have to be determined, have the intestinal fortitude to stick it out, and be able to persevere through these challenges and not give up. It's the same thing, you've learned in boot camp, the same thing you learned if you got deployed, the same thing you learned, as you were part of, whatever unit you were part of. And some things that, as you get into the civilian world, especially as a business owner, are out of your control. So you just have to be able to adjust fire, change, and be persistent, and just power through it. And hard work, just like everything that I learned in the military, always pays off. So just keep the target in sight, and just keep working hard, and you'll get through it. But sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you might want it to.
I like that sage advice there. Be patient. It doesn't happen as quick as it does in military. That's good advice right there. So with that, so how do our listeners support your business? What's your website? How do they find your products?
Yeah, so our products are available on Amazon. So if you just go to Amazon and you type in Louisiana Pepper Exchange, you'll see them. We have on there the 4 ounce jars, which are really for home cooking. But if you're a big barbecuer, or if you, like we do in Louisiana, like to boil seafood, you can also get it in half gallons. Um, we're in. If you go to our website, which is www.lapepperexchange.com, there's a store locator. So we're fairly regional at the moment, except for in Walmart, we have a pretty good footprint. You can go to the store locator and see exactly where the product's available. If you do go to the website, spend some time on we have recipes and we have education on the website, because this is really an ingredient. It's not a sauce. It's not a condiment. So you use it when you're cooking. And so there's lots of really cool and fun recipes on the website that would give some inspiration on how to use our product. But yeah, we'd love for you guys to go visit it, give it a shot, try it. It's a really authentic, natural product. It's just pepper and salt. That's all it is. There's no other preservatives or ingredients in it. So it's the closest thing you can have to a fresh pepper. And then you don't have to spend time cutting peppers and getting it on your fingers and your eyes. And, so it's a really unique product, and we really appreciate the opportunity to let people try it. So
That's great. And speaking of cutting peppers, I got a gross culinary story. One of my cooks next to me chopped off a tip of her finger in a batch of red peppers,
oh,
and it was very hard to find because it was red peppers. Just came to mind, but kind of gross one. But no,
oh
and
goodness,
Chris is
I'm
great.
sure the pepper didn't help with the pain either.
Yeah, no, definitely not. She had a little bit of nub after that, but she recovered, I think.
Yeah,
But with
yeah.
that,
It's
man,
I can tell, going through the development of all the things that we've done. I
Mhm.
have literally been covered head to toe, and we import 32 different peppers, and anything from a jalapeno, which is quite mild, or a cayenne, which is quite
Uh-huh.
mild, all the way to the ghost pepper and reaper pepper. And
Oof.
I have literally been covered head to toe in all of these. And
Wow.
so I have a very keen appreciation for not having to process peppers, because
I
I
can imagine.
I kind of have yeah, I know the pain.
Yeah, I bet. I can only imagine. Jeez. I thought being covered in like garlic was bad, but that's next level. Whew. But
Yep.
anything you didn't touch on here that you want to share with the mill vets tuning in?
No, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast, and big fan, and uh, look forward to spending some more time with you in the future again.
Awesome, Chris. Well, it was a pleasure, and thanks for your time and your advice.
Very welcome.